Hello everybody, here is Ivan Zelinka and I would like to welcome you in our tutorial about Swarm Intelligence in Cybersecurity, which is shared with my colleague Roman Schenkeřík. We are both from the Czech Republic and our tutorial is focused on the mutual fusion of the Swarm Intelligence or generally artificial intelligence and cybersecurity topics. So welcome on the tutorial and we hope that you will like it. A few words about us. My name, as I told you, is Ivan Zelinka, and I'm professor of computer science at Technical University of Ostrava, where I teach cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and many other subjects. I'm also a member of British Computer Society and IEEE. Everything about me can be found on my website, ivanzelinka.eu, where is full information about my research, my groups, and our publications. I am also head of the Navy Research Group. Navy is abbreviation of Unconventional Algorithm and Computation, and this research group is focused in the same way as the tutorial topic, that means the swarm intelligence and cybersecurity. That's why we propose this tutorial to GECCO conference. I'm also, beside my contract on faculty, part of the National Supercomputing Center, which is located in our campus in Ostrava. And this is a supercomputing center, which is one of the strongest supercomputers in the Middle Europe. Our university consists of the 7 faculties, where the main university is that with the blue logo, which is inside the campus of the university, and we are located here on the east-north part of Czech Republic in Ostrava city, nearby Polish and Slovak border. As you know, Czech Republic is very small, but it's located between Germany, Poland, Austria, so it's really in the heart of the Europe. And that's again a repetition of my informations that I'm also a member and head of the Navy Lab and IT for Innovation Supercomputing Center.
I would like to introduce myself. My name is Roman Schenkeřík. I'm from Thomas Bati University, as was already said. I'm from the Department of Mathematics and Artificial Intelligence, and well, currently I'm leading the Evolution and Computation Research Group and at the university, and I'm the head of the AI Lab, Artificial Intelligence Lab. Well, my research interests are quite, let's say, obvious. So I'm dealing with mostly the evolution computation, development, modification, hybridization, and benchmarking of evolution algorithms. We are working with neuroevolution paradigm, like with machine learning, of course. We are working in applications, in various applications, either industrial or in cybersecurity of the evolution computation. And just briefly to introduce our lab, well, this is the website of our AI lab from our university. So I said that mostly we are focused on the interdisciplinary applications of evolutionary computation, but we have a wonderful cooperation in a benchmarking network with the people that are dealing with the benchmarking of the evolutionary computation, and we are always trying to make the evolution algorithms more simple to understand, better to understand, easier to implement, and of course more effective and robust through let's say dedicated adaptation and new theories and interesting approaches. Well, just briefly about our team and about us in the web. So we have 3 groups in Artificial Intelligence Lab: the Evolution Computation Research Group, where I'm the head, and the Machine Learning Research Group, mostly oriented to research in medical images and, let's say, features extractors, and Swarm Robotics Research Group, where the head is Michal Pluháček, who is working with the paradigm of swarm intelligence and swarm robotics.
We both with Roman would like to dedicate this tutorial in memoriam of Petr Šor, who was a legendary researcher on the field of computer malware and inspired many people to follow his research in that way. So we would like to dedicate this presentation to Peter. Before we start properly about all topics and we introduce you the skeleton of this presentation, I would like to talk a bit freely about some ideas. When you are talking about malware research with people, they usually look at you in a very strange way if you say that you are experimenting with viruses, because everybody think that it's something very bad. We would like to say that the research of the malware, even if you are doing research on the new unknown malware, is very correct and very important, because if you don't know future threats or very modern threats which can meet your computer or you personally on the internet, then you are in very high risk. So that's why we are doing research on the field of the swarm intelligence and cybersecurity, and we are doing this research on both sides of coin. That means we are doing research on how to defend devices and our data from the malware by swarm intelligence, as we will see in the examples and showcases. Also, we are trying to estimate or develop or play in our laboratory with viruses which are enhanced by swarm intelligence in order to investigate what will be its behavior, what kind of footprint they let on the internet, digital footprints. So that's our research and idea, and based on this we think that scientific thinking should be free of any political issues. So that's why we think that people should follow this research and keep it correctly in all ethical levels and borders. So today's tutorial have a agenda like this. Firstly, there is some introduction. Then we will talk about malware and artificial intelligence and swarm intelligence. Why? Because the GECCO is conference focused mostly on soft computing and evolutionary computation, and people from this community usually have no idea what malware does exactly means and how does it work and what are its attributes, and how we can categorize this malware into subclasses and families and so on. And in order to understand our further explanation about its fusion, it's important to understand what malware in fact is. So in the first short part, we will talk about malware, its classification, and its functionality, to understand what's going on inside the malware programs. Then there will be very short introduction into AI and swarm intelligence, because you already should know that. However, to keep this tutorial compact for any listeners, we decide to talk about AI, its history, and its using in malware and anti-malware solutions, as well as about swarm intelligence, because this is exactly joined with our research we are going to report later. So after this introduction about malware's history, we will talk about its techniques and principles and so on. And then we will talk about our research, which is focused, as mentioned here in the item, the most advanced malware, what we shall expect. We will talk about our research, how we fuse together swarm intelligence and malware or anti-malware activities, and we try to explain how does it work, what kind of behavior we observed, how we visualize that, and so on. And we also predict kind of malware based on the swarm intelligence, which is behaving in the computer systems, or let's call that in digital universe, basically in the same principles like particle swarm optimization or any kind of swarm algorithms in computer simulations on the sum cost functions. While for PSO, SOMA, or anti-clone optimization, mathematical functions are living environment. So for computer viruses based on the swarm intelligence is computer or computer network living environment. So we'll talk about all those details. At the end, we prepare for you some examples and videos. Basically, these are spread through whole tutorial, but mostly at the end. And also discuss some future anti-malware technologies based on facts, what we can learn from our prototype of XSwarm, which is basically swarm computer worm. Don't worry, you will know, you will be planned by us. What does mean computer worms? It's kind of special computer malware. And at the end, there will be time, I hope so, or slot for questions and discussions. So that's our today's agenda, and we try to be as precise as possible in all our talks. So let's start with motivation. Why motivation? It's quite clear. If we are doing some research, we must have a reason why we are doing this research. And research is usually motivated by disclosing of the new facts, new relations, new scientific discoveries. Our motivation is also based on this, but also partly on the problem of today's world, which means on the security of this world, because as you know, today's world, and as you will see in the prepared videos, is full of cybernetic attacks and problems. And while standard people think that internet today is a peaceful environment where they can meet, talk, chat about everything, the truth is completely opposite. That means that today's internet is full of attacks, full of cybercrimes, full of violence, and so on and so on. Everything is meeting in the deep network. So darknet, in so-called darknet. So that's basically true picture of today's internet. So the motivation is to make some research on that topic with possible answers how we can defend better in our computer systems and data in the future. Let's start with a few examples only, because the only topic on motivation is for 1 hour of discussion. Let's mention only a few really dangerous examples. For example, in 2009, 2010, there was observed the computer virus called Stuxnet. You probably heard about this computer virus, which has been captured by Iranian computer scientist after the fact that he attacked the nuclear devices in Iran and destroyed about 1,000 special devices which had been producing the enriched uranium. After all, when they did the investigation on the structure of this malware, they found that this malware is so sophisticated. Stuxnet, again, I repeat, is so sophisticated that it is not possible to be created by one man. So there is a kind of theory that this Stuxnet is first so-called cybernetic weapon, which has been constructed probably by German and US special forces in order to attack these Iranian nuclear devices without any war conflict in Iranian busher. And they succeed. This Stuxnet virus has been constructed so that it was focused on the special devices produced by company Siemens. So this virus was searching for those devices inside the Iranian state, and when this Stuxnet found those devices, he destroyed them by high-speed rotation. So that was the first successful using of cyber weapon. There is, however, another dark side of this activity. Those cybernetic weapons are very efficient, very anonymous. However, if they run away from the target, they can cause very big disasters. Like, for example, in China, there is the high-speed train called maglev, and that train is using the same Siemens devices as has been used in Iranian busher. So let's imagine that this virus would meet this maglev, would visit its control computer, and found that the device from the Siemens is present there. Then he would speed it up on the maximum. In the case of the speed train, you can imagine what should happen in that case. The most hit country by this virus was Iran. However, they have been noticed also in India and Pakistan, partly, but not so much. Another issue is 2008. There was air crash of the Spanair MD-82 on the Madrid airport, and 154 people died. It is the worst tragedy in Spain in the last 25 years. And after a very intensive investigation, they found that one of the service computer system has been attacked by Trojan horse, which is special kind of malware. So there was a lot of papers, you can find them even today on the internet, which discuss how much this Trojan can cause this tragedy. So or so, if that was mistake of pilots or direct activity of the Trojan, true is that he was able to entry into special systems which are part of the control of the flight. Also, we can talk about another kind of viruses which successfully reached the Mir cosmic station, space station, in the notebook of one of the Russian cosmonauts. So you can see that this kind of software is really possible to meet whenever you are going. Another example of importance of cybersecurity today and cyber weapons and all those systems which create a rich family of software for espionage and so on is for example the blackout which has been noticed last year in South America. It was printed in many journals, including New York Times. They discuss who is responsible for that blackout because whole country has been switched off from the electricity. And there are some conspiracy theories which say that some national hackers, which I am not going to tell you which country, simply some national hackers has been practicing their capabilities to switch off whole country out of energy or communication. So that's a sign what kind of the future conflicts and wars are waiting for the humanity, I believe personally. So this malware basically is a key product, key tool for all hackers or army who are going to attack you via computer networks and so on. So everything is around those malware systems, malware software. So that's why we are talking about this, and that's we think that it's very important. If you are more interested, then you can take a look on the statistics. This is one of the many examples you can find on internet. You can find many statistics in Kaspersky Lab. I show you later, and many other websites which are belonging to the antivirus companies, and they usually release periodically the informations about computer malware and threats of different kinds. And you can see that there is a lot of conflicts today, a lot of different kind of malware is attacking the computers of the people. You can see also statistics based on the countries or based on the kind of malware and so on. If you are more interested, then you can visit very special websites I show you now, where you can see in the real live online transmission what's the situation on the internet at the moment now. So let's take a look on a few of those monitors to give you better imagination how terrible is now situation on the computer network, which we call usually internet. We have selected for you only 3 examples demonstration of, let's call them, online monitors which monitor the malicious activities on the world based on different criteria. One of them is StreetMap, which you already see on your screen, and that's the online monitor which is monitoring the mostly malware activities and attacks from the different parts of wars on another countries. And those graphic lines you can see which looks like ballistic missiles, these represents kind of attacks from to. So you can see attacks from United States to Europe, from Germany to South America, from Russia to China, and so on. So you can see that this problem is really worldwide and out of any nationality, because people who are behind those attacks, they can sit whenever else. They can sit in New Zealand, Madagascar, on any kind of country, inside any kind of country. So you cannot say that if Ukraine is attacking Thailand, that Ukraine is responsible. This is not completely true, as I will explain later, based on the botnet malware. As you can see on the upper part of the screen, I mean here, so there is today recorded more than 10 million incidents. Please remind that this monitor don't monitor or scan whole internet, whole world network. It's only peak of glacier which this monitor is showing. So in fact, if this monitor showed that there was 10 million attacks or incidents, that means that in reality there was much more, let's say 100 millions or more. It is clearly visible on another monitors like, for example, Kaspersky Lab. Kaspersky Lab is very nice also monitor for monitoring of the malicious activities, where you can select country which you are interested. For example, let's take a look on my country. So you can take a look on the Czech Republic, for example, if we find it here. Oh, that's Slovakia just beside. Sorry, Slovak. I'm probably not able to. Here we are. And in the table you can see strange the abbreviations, which means different kind of the threats which has been recorded in the Czech Republic, like on-demand scan, all vulnerabilities, intrusion detection systems, and much more, which is here in the data source explained. So you can take a look what is status quo today on the internet via Kaspersky Lab monitor system, and you can generate different statistics and data sets from that website. And the last one I would like to show you is NetScout Cyber Threat Horizon, which is focused on DDoS attacks. And you can see here very strange kind of rain of the yellow and orange lines. That means DDoS attack. DDoS attack is that many computers around the world are doing the attack on your computer. So they are attacking at one moment one special server computer or set of computers in some country. And you can see that those lines start over the whole map, but they are focusing in one point. So that means in that point is the victim computer which is under attack. And DDoS attack means distributed denial of service. That means if your server, your computer is overloaded by some demands for connection and whatever else, it can collapse down, and that's the basic idea of DDoS attack. You can see a lot of them each minute, each second. If you are interested, let's click on the Vietnam, for example, and you can see what basic characteristic of these DDoS attacks, including duration and time of the beginning and time of the end. So all this can be found on these websites and much more. So if you have time, visit them, and then you will see much more important information. So those maps, as I show you, just should underline that cybersecurity is very important for our technological civilization today, and we should be strong in the cybersecurity. And why we are talking this topic on the GECCO? Because GECCO is working with the evolutionary computation, with swarm intelligence partly, so we can say with artificial intelligence. Which I think we can say that soft computing and evolution algorithms and swarm intelligence are part of artificial intelligence in general. And that's very important because while in the past standard computer threats has been based on the standard computer science and programming, last years the artificial intelligence became to be much more and more important in the revealing of the patterns, malicious patterns in behavior in the programs, or identification of the attacks from unknown sources, and so on and so on. And because the people who are creating those malwares activities, even hacker activities, these are very well educated too. So it is logical to expect, and it start to happen, that artificial intelligence will be also used by them for attacking. And we would like to show that in our presentation today. So that's why we joined these two topics, and that's why we are also talking about AI in this tutorial. So let's go further. Attacks we already talked about are part of so-called cybersecurity landscape. That means the internet from the point of view of the cyber threats and cybersecurity. So let's a little bit talk about this. So up to computer developments and discoveries, the space for conflicts for human has been divided into three or later on four parts. That was ground, ocean, air, and later in 20th century space. So basically these four quadrants create for a long time in human history the field for future conflicts and violence. In the last decades appears new element called cyberspace, and because the internet, computers, its communication is spread everywhere, including space, we can say that cyberspace is present everywhere. So cyberspace is hard to distinguish from another part of the space because this is based on the computer technology, and as you know, computer chips are today whenever you look. And cyberspace can be, of course, divided into subsets or a subset of activities like hacking, malware, and many others. And all this, as we already see, can be visualized by by the special monitoring, which gives you at least a rough idea what's going on the internet in that moment, like this threat point map or the cyber map from Kaspersky Lab and so on. So to better understand malware, because malware is the backbone of this presentation together with Swarm Intelligence, let a little bit talk about malware and its history, because it's important to understand the background of this very sophisticated technology. If we are talking about malware history, we must go deeper than computer history is. In fact, I mean modern computer history, because in fact computer history is much more longer than internet. If we are going properly back to the roots of the malware history, then we met nobody else than Turing or John von Neumann. They were interested in not only universal computing and computers, but also about self-replicating machines. So they try to develop theory and try to understand under what conditions machine can reproduce itself. And that's, by the way, one of the most important attributes of the computer malware. So while Turing theoretically developed the so-called Turing machine, which is able to make its copies, von Neumann has been doing research on so-called solar automata, where he proposed the automata with 29 states and 5 elements, which gives him a possibility of a huge number of replicating machines and operations. And this idea has been proposed in 1948. Later on, in 50s, Watson and Crick in 60s, they discovered and introduced the DNA, which is basically nothing else than a structure which is able to make reproducing its copies. And when how the research goes on, then cells with 8 states and 5 elements has been introduced in 80s together with Game of Life, which is very famous, and you already saw a short video here, which is the special program which simulates digital universe with very simple rules inside this matrix. And those simple rules, when interact, cause that structures which looks like alive appears there and are able to even create their own copies. So that's a nice demonstration of the capabilities of solar automata. So the research in the case of the self-replicating machines is much more longer than computer viruses are. And I think the computer virus theory then comes from those self-replicating machines, in fact. If we are take a more closer look on the theory of malware, there is a lot of nice books about it. Then we can see that there is a lot of different descriptions. For example, while computer scientists understand malware like the code on the bottom right corner, theoretical computer scientists understand the malware as a very special machine which can be described by very strange code in the left top corner. Both these descriptions can be fully equal. However, these are done in a different, say, scientific language. And they represent basically the self-replicating Turing machines. In fact, where the Turing machine is kind of device which has some head which is able to make an operation over the tape, which is usually so-called infinite, but for our purposes needs to be infinite. And the tape is reading and writing informations from the tape and on the tape, and is doing according to instructions on the tape its own reconstruction or copy. And that's basically nothing else than computer virus, because computer virus is doing exactly the same. It reads its own body, make a copy, and spread it around the computer system. However, strictly following the history, so let's talk more technically. If we take a look on the brief history of malware, then we found that there is a lot of very nice examples. As I told you, everything started by Alan Madison Turing and John von Neumann, where they developed the theory of organization of complicated automata and postulated how the computer programs can reproduce themselves. In 50s, some researchers at Bell Labs give a life to von Neumann's idea in the game called Core War. That game was based on the software organism that has competed for the control over the computer. And that was only, say, children playing. But the real virus appears in 80s, maybe even sooner, but the most recognized computer virus in 80s called the brain. That virus was very dangerous. It spread itself through the bootable media and carried the first signs of the so-called stealth technology. That means that system wasn't able to discover this virus, and it has been done by two Pakistan brothers who developed this brain computer virus just for kind of research reasons. And because they let inside the software of the brain, they let there some information, including their phone number, then very quickly get a feedback from people. What does it mean when the people found that there is something very strange in their computer? And after brain start era of very modern and recent malware system and softwares. So if you take a look on the timeline, which is on this slide also, you can see that theory of self-reproducing automata is somewhere in the 50s, 60s. Then comes viruses like Creeper, Rabbit, Providing Animal, and many other viruses like Vienna, Jerusalem, Amoeba, and many others. Some of them are very well known by name, like for example Morris, that was first computer worm. You must distinguish between virus and worm, because while virus occupied your computer, the worm is occupying all computers in the network. So usually one computer is occupied by one worm and they are communicating over the network, which is basically kind of philosophy of the botnet for DDoS attacks you already saw. Or first polymorphic virus chameleon. Polymorphic viruses, it's a special class of oligomorphic viruses. These viruses are able to make up mutations, high level of mutations of their decryptors, and decryptors is kind of engine which allow the virus encrypt itself. So by this encryption, the virus, it is hardly to recognize whether the software is a virus or not. And because antivirus software was able to later on recognize the so-called oligomorphic viruses, so a new generation of so-called polymorphic viruses comes, and there is high level of number of mutations of this decryptor. And we can continue in this way further. You can see very famous Michelangelo virus in 1992 and many others, as you can see on this timeline, and so on and so on, up to this year. There was a lot of different viruses which create a family of viruses, and are focused on the different tasks. For example, that corn figure, that was computer worm, very mysterious and very famous for its activities and way how it's communicate with its creators, or any other viruses you can see here, like CryptoLocker and the other viruses. There are two special viruses which I mark by red letter. That means swarm virus and neural swarm worm. These are coming from our lab, and these are not spread around the world. We are just keeping them in our laboratory in order to investigate how the malware with artificial intelligence, or better say with swarm intelligence, will behave, and what kind of patterns of its behavior can be recorded or observed by the system tools. So that's why I mark these two viruses by red, because according to us, it's a kind of pioneering idea, because up to now, many people which has been studying or doing viruses were following the classical standard path in their construction. But up to now, nobody joined that with artificial intelligence. However, there were some attempts to do it. If we take a more closer look on our publications, which are used in the second part of this presentation, so these are like this, for example, where we try to investigate not only state of art on the artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, which has been done, for example, in this paper up there, but also how we can detect the malware based on contextual understanding of apical sequences, which is standard approach, non-intelligence approach. However, it can be mixed with artificial intelligence. And also another like neural swarm virus, because we found a way how the neural networks can be in the swarm, implemented in the swarm, and carry information about payload and so on. So all this I will discuss in the second part of this presentation, when we will finish introduce about malware and brief overview of Swarm and artificial intelligence. So let's take a closer look. What is virus? So strictly said, the virus can be described by sequence of the symbols which are able to, when interpreted in suitable environment, that means, for example, in computer, if we are talking about computer program, are able to modify another sequence of symbols in that environment by including its own copy. So that's why we call that virus, because it's behave like virus in biological realm. So it's nothing else than special program. If we take a closer look on computer and biological virus, then we find a lot of relations, and that's why the computer program which is doing those things we described on that slide, we call virus, because its attributes and behavior and so on are very similar to biological virus. So that's why we call that computer virus. This is nothing which comes from the heaven. This is nothing which appears randomly in our computer. This is a program which has been made on purpose by a human programmer. So let's quickly discuss the differences. So the biological virus, for example, require the infected cells to spread them. So he must infect cells to spread itself. Does the same is doing by computer virus. He infect the files, for example, and spread by the activities on those files. So computer virus cannot auto-generate itself in general point of view, of course. There are special kind of viruses which don't need file for attack. They are based on the special script language, but let's keep that topic away for the moment. Then viruses in the biological world, they attack specific kind of cells. The same we can observe with computer viruses. So virus can infect specific type of files like executable files only, or COM files only, or DLL libraries, and so on. The virus in biological world modified victim's genetic material. The same is doing virus in computer. He's modifying binary code, because when he attacked the host file, he can attack this host file by many ways, in many ways, and can in that way it's modified its binary code. So CRC checksum codes are different, and so on. In biological world, virus take most control of their host cells. Basically the same we can observe in computer virus. The virus is code which is executed before the passing control to the host. Usually that's the main idea of the standard classical virus. So when you run infected program and the program is really infected, then you basically run firstly virus without your knowledge, without your approving, and when the virus finish its activity, then he give the control to the host program, which continues normally. It's so quick that you are not able to recognize that by naked eyes. It's simply impossible if virus is done very well and everything else is okay. Let's take a look on the 5 item. The most viruses will not infect the cells which are already infected. So we can observe the same with computer viruses. On the beginning of the virus era in computers, there were cases that one virus attacked the same file 1000 times. But in that case, the performance of the computer very strongly decreased down, and that was one sign that there is something wrong, and such kind of viruses has been very quickly revealed and erased. So that's why then computer creators create the malware which is checking whether the file is clear or not, and if it is clear, then they attack the file, otherwise they avoid that. And next item, symptom may not appear or may be delayed. The same with computer viruses. If your computer is infected, it doesn't mean that you will see problems immediately. They can appear after half of a year, after 1 year, after 1 month. It depends on the task which has been done to the virus, so on the aim for which the virus has been created. It can wait for special day, like for example virus called Chernobyl, which activates itself in the April, I think 26 April, that's the day when the atomic power plant blew up in the Ukraine. So that's why this virus has been created, kind of black humor or so. The last item 7, viruses in biological world often mutate, making detection and disinfection difficult. The same we can observe in the case of computer viruses. They are modern viruses contains a mutating code, so they are able to mutate their own bodies. By adding of the so-called trash code It's called obfuscation. So that's our instructions which are doing nothing but make a code complicated and visually looking different comparing to its previous version. Or there are metamorphic viruses which mutate their body so that they in a combinatorial way change the structure of their body, as you will see later in the publication in this presentation. And also, last item, the cells can be vaccinated against the particular viruses, and the same can be said about computer viruses for files. There is a specific procedure for specific viruses, mostly in the past, that files can be protected against particular viruses. If you know the mechanism based on which the virus is avoiding file, so you can simulate that the file is already infected, for example, and virus is avoiding that file. So these differences are the most important and most significant. So let's continue further. So let's take a look on the very simple video simulation. How does it work? After this flowchart diagram. So this flowchart diagram basically represents the basic idea of the computer virus. So the normal program, which has been done by programmers like virus, starts and first is looking for victim. If there is no victim which can be infected, program ends. I mean the virus program ends and give the control to the host. If there is a victim, then infection is done. After infection is run payload, and after payload, virus activity ends. Infection basically can be imagined like the detailed flow chart up there, where the start of infection means that the virus is already checking whether it's in file. If it's in the file, so it's overjump everything and finish end of infection. So that's why today we cannot meet file which is infected 1000 times. Otherwise, it's read the virus file, that means its own body, and overwrite or append itself to the host body, depend on the condition and ends of infection. And then it's continued to the payload. Payload means the main activity for the virus has been constructed, like for example, erasing of data, stealing of data, making pictures through your webcam or whatever else, or destroying those Iranian devices in the Iranian brochure, for example. So that's the rough idea, very rough flowchart of the basic ideas of how the malware is working. Of course, today there are whole families of the viruses and malware. So this scheme you see already on the screen is only basic one, which is valid for the basic generation of the modern computer malware. And now how does it work? There are two possibilities in the very basic point of view. First one is that virus override the program. That means if the virus is able to locate its victim, the blue one, it's override part of this program by its own body. Which means if you run this blue program, then you run only virus and everything ends. And that's very bad because the virus is discovered very quickly by user of computer because the program is not running, just only kind of special software. So that's why they come later, the creators of the viruses, with more sophisticated technology, how to join the program. That means digital cells for the infection, so that the virus firstly append the copy of its body to the program, then redirect it jump from the beginning of the program on the beginning of the virus body, and from the end of the virus body on the beginning of the program, which means when you create such infected program and then user later on run this program, so during milliseconds the flow of the instruction has been redirected to the body of virus has been done with all infections, searching for victims, doing payloads, whatever else, and at the end of this virus body the flow of the instruction has been redirected back to program which has been normally done up to its end and finished. And because the virus is usually very small and short code and it's done very quickly by computer, usually you didn't see any changes. If your program has been starting half second or 1 second, nobody care about this very short time, and during this time the virus can do its activities. So that are two basic principles of so-called virus infections on the file. I must say that today there is a lot of another kind of malwares and a kind of vector of infections. So this is only very basic. And in fact, how virus does it look? So virus is basically program, as I told you. It's program normally written by human programmers, which can look like, for example, this. This is one of the very simple, primitive overwriting the virus, which I create for students in C language, just to show them how the looks code and how does it work in the principle, to show them that this is not some kind of mystery, but this is regular programming only used in the wrong way. So that's one way how we can look on the malware. That's some kind of code like evolutionary computation is a similar code which is doing some instructions. Or we can take a look on the malware much more deeper, then we get so-called assembler, so that is machine programming code which has the special instruction on the level of processor, and that kind of programming is much more complex, even analysis and reading of the body. Or another point of view on malware is in hexadecimal viewing, but this is usually good only for forensic analysis when we are tracking the digital footprints in the computer after malware appears and damage something. Now let's take a look on how does it work in reality. So we prepare some video for you, and you will see in this video how simple it is to run the virus and how quick it is in order to infect your another files without any noticing. In fact, 4 short videos, so they don't need my comments for that time. Just enjoy the video and short subtitles. Okay, so now you saw two short demonstrations about the overwriting virus and prepending virus. Please remind that those demonstrations are very primitive and simple, and in reality, the virus don't wait for pressing of any keyboard to continue and so on. So the whole process is very, very quick. And of course, today there are another much more modern way how to spread infection rather than via file system. So let's go ahead toward to our main core. Uh, in order to continue properly to the end of the malware section, I must notice that there is a lot of kind of viruses and malwares. They create whole families, and the vector of infection, that means how do they infect your computers, are different. So we can classify them basically as a direct and indirect infection. Direct means that somebody is directly attacking to your computer or computers belonging to the special group like company and so on. And indirect means that people are simply releasing virus to the network, and it's spread widely through the network, through the internet, and computers are simply in collision with this software are simply attacked and infected if there is not good protection. So we can see that there are programmable viruses and virus generators. Maybe that sounds strange for you. However, you can very easily find through the web search engines that there are so-called generators which helps you build up your own virus. Mostly not working, but there are some cases noted that those generators created very good working viruses. And if you are a skilled programmer, then there is definitely no problem to modify the crippled virus from the virus generator so that it works properly. And those viruses can be classified into different classes like dropper injectors, worms, rabbits, logical bombs, trojans, and so on and so on. Too much families and classification for malware software. Uh, as you can see here, so the malware can be classified into those families like classical viruses. Then worm. Worm is kind of virus which is traveling through the computer network. Trojan, that's kind of malware which face itself as a software which you are expecting and you want to start in your computer. Then spyware, which is basically specialized malware which is dedicated to stealing of information. Ransomware is doing encryption of your data and then ask for money. Adware is simply annoying by some adware windows and advertisements, or botnets, for example, which you already saw on those live monitors. These are basically kind of thousands of computers attacking one specific computer or set of computers. And a botnet is basically core of our idea, which as you will see soon later. There's a vector of spreading or vector of attack is like this. They can use removable media like USB files, USB sticks, email attachments. They can be downloaded by accident. They can be imported into your computer by social engineering, because somebody can send you email as if it would be your well-known friend. Hey Joe, there is a special attachment for you. Run it and you will be enjoyed. So you see, okay, that's a really mail which looks like from my friend. So I run it and you have in your computer malware. It's a very primitive example. Of course, social engineering is much more sophisticated applied psychology on how to make people confused and control them to run software or do things which the attacking person is expecting. And also they can propagate through the computer network and more delivery methods. Of course, the advanced malware today is using very strange techniques which are highly sophisticated, and they are using, for example, encryption. As I was talking about, encryption means that the virus encrypts its own body to hide himself or itself against the anti-malware scanners. Oligomorphism and polymorphism, that means that this class of viruses is able to do a mutation of their encryption engines, which are called decryptors. And polymorphism is basically high level of oligomorphism. There is about 1 million possible mutations of those encryption engines. And last is metamorphism. That's a class of viruses which are able to, based on a combinatorial approach, the change block of its body so that functionalities remains the same. However, the body looks in a different in comparison with some sample strings in anti-malware database. And of course, there is a much more modern techniques like stealth technology, which helps the viruses to hide themselves against anti-malware engines and scanners and so on and so on. That's the whole story about it. They are also using so-called obfuscation techniques. For example, on the right part of screen here, as I'm moving it by the mouse, you can see the picture where there's a string path and some path. And on the left side is its obfuscation. So obfuscation means that we are creating code which looks differently than original one. However, its functionality is completely the same. And former scanners simply were not able to recognize this. So if they were focused on such string, or simple string like here, as a sign of the malware presence, they simply didn't find it, because if you use this obfuscation code, it was for the scanner okay. And also they are using the armoring techniques. That means they are using anti-debug technologies and anti-heuristic technologies, which should disable or decrease probability to be discovered by debugging heuristic methods and so on. So there is a lot of technologies around malware, and that's clear that it very soon start to use also artificial intelligence in its activities. There is another example of the obfuscation code. On the left side is original one, and on the right side is slightly obfuscated. So you can see that's very kind of mimicry which we can observe in the nature. So when you are analyzing that kind of code, you have a few chances how to do it. So you can analyze it based on the source code if you are happy to get it somehow, or from the machine code, which is basically hexadecimal numbers. You can restore it into so-called assembler. That means via disassembler procedure. And in assembler, you can analyze in the special software like IDA or OLI debugger that code, how does it work, and make some analysis if we can expect that this is malware or not. Those environmental reverse engineering softwares are like this. This is OLI debugger. You can see it's really for experts who are able to understand the machine code. That means assembler, which is the lowest programming language as far as I know, or so. And if you compare on the left side is assembler code with its original C code, then you can see differences. On the right side, there is nicely readable C code, while on the left side is almost unreadable assembler code for standard IT men or IT users. We can only identify the part of the C language by the strings which are in this assembler displayed like here on those right in this right column. So the reverse engineering or forensic analysis is very hard and very special job in malware technology and investigation. And I think there is also a place for artificial intelligence so that it can be used to identify not only critical points in the software, but also the style of writing of the malware, and estimate who is author, if somebody else or someone who is already in the database. Another anti-debugger disassembler machine is a very good IDA software, which make a disassembling of the whole code, and also it creates some kind of blocks of the codes joined by the arrows and show you the flow of the instructions, which is very nice. It creates kind of flow chart diagram based on assembler. However, again, you must be expert to understand fully what's going on there. So if we summarize this, we should say that virus can be understood on a few level of description. So first one is flowchart, which is understandable for anyone. Second is some kind of language like C language you can see here. Then assembler or hexadecimal code, but those parts are really only for experts. Together with those real facts, there is a lot of rumors and legends and truth about what malware can do or cannot do. So you know from the books, movies, and different stories that we can very easily infect some interstellar ships and whatever else, or our monitors can blow up and explode and those nonsenses. Of course, this is nonsense because uh, simply malware is a human code for human computers, which is developed by humans. And we understand exactly what's going on inside computers. But the unknown technology from the outer space, as is done in Independence Day or Space Odyssey 3000, it's something different because we absolutely would not have idea about this technology. So this is of course science fiction as well as hardware destruction. There's only one special case when it really happens, and that was Stuxnet virus I was talking about on the beginning. So let's follow the reality. So what about advanced malware we can expect, as you will see soon in the next section about AI, which is focused not only on AI but also on malware. Uh, the malware with AI is basically next generation malware and really start to be used in the malware activities and hacker activities. So it can be used like intelligent evasion techniques or autonomous malware, you know, which can be joined with bots, as you will see, or bio-inspired and swarm intelligence joined with malware, which we propose because it's logical to expect such kind of malware very soon. Why? Well, take a look on this slide. As you remember that one of those first videos where I demonstrated DDoS attack, where the many lightning path has been starting around the world and joining one point in the map, that was DDoS attack. So usually it's done by so-called bot network. And bot network means that you have one command and control computer or two, and those command and control computers are remoting whole networks on the normal standard computers, even yours computer, so that the computers are infected, but they are doing nothing, just infected and waiting for the master command. And master is somebody who is sitting behind those CNC control servers. That man can be in Russia, can be in US, can be in China, even on North Pole, whatever. Simply, it's out of any national borders and nationality. And when that bootmaster give a command, then that boot basically start to activate whole network and start to do attack in the same time on the pre-selected target. So that's contemporary state on the DDoS attacks, for example. So we have a wild family and a wide and rich family of malwares, including this bot technology. And the question is, what happens next? What kind of future is waiting for us in the malware development? And we think that we found one of possible answers. What happened if we delete this, say, command and control server, which is basically communicating with all those zombies computers or bot computers, bot network. If we delete this, say, central unit, let's call it central unit for our purposes here, then a whole bot network would be killed. But if we replace the communication with this central unit uh, with so that they will communicate amongst themselves, then we get nothing else than swarm. So we can have a swarm of viruses which are spreading autonomously via network or computer system, communicate among themselves in a different way. We already tried, and can search for the target to fulfill its task. So activate payload like destroy uranium devices in Iranian Bushehr or whatever else, blow up any devices or shut down half of country and so on and so on. So as you can see, that's quite logical step because there is no you don't need any heavy thinking for this deduction because it's simple. Simply cross out the CS command and control server, that central unit, and replace the communication so that they are communicating all of them together, and you have nothing else than swarm. And as you know, as an expert on evolutionary and swarm competition, you know already what is it. So Swarm is a real algorithm which is working or mimicking of the nature. So there should not be technically problem to apply this on the computer system. So in that way, we can get a swarm virus. That why we call that from the beginning swarm virus. But during our research, we found that some people are looking on that research quite strange because they thought that we are bad guys developing the Terminator virus. So we found that it's better to call that Xware, because this approach is also possible to use for anti-malware very easily. So it's basically technology, and if you use that on one or second side of coin, it's basically on the people. However, we develop this software also for the fact that we try in our laboratories how does it behave, what kind of the footprints it let in the computer during its moving, and communication, in order to get some a priori knowledge on how this swarm virus can exhibit itself if observed by external observer, if possible, of course. So that's about malware all. Now we very briefly pass through a section about artificial intelligence and swarm intelligence, with major focus on it's already actual using on malware and anti-malware problems. And then we have a section with our examples, our research, and our videos about this swarm virus, or better say Xware. So let's go talk shortly about AI, its history, and other topics which are mostly joined with the malware technology. So if we take a short look on a brief history of AI, as everybody knows, so AI can be dated back to half of or 60s of the 20th century. However, if you take a properly look into deeper history, you realize that artificial intelligence cannot be done without computers, without machines. And those machines have much more deeper history, even from the old times like Antikythera machines and so on. First man who developed the computer, one of the modern simply computer which is able to calculate, is Charles Babbage from the England. And in 40s comes Alan Turing, who developed Turing machines. And as surprisingly less people know, the Alan Turing developed also theory about evolutionary computation. So he established terminology like parents, offsprings, mutation, crossover, generations, evolutions. He simply described this in some papers and basically put the background for evolutionary computation. Together with him, John von Neumann, as we already talked about, him thinking about self-replicating machines, and for example, Konrad Zuse, that was a German engineer who invented also one of the first computers together in the same time as the Turing, but the history almost forgot him. You can also see here some graphs with timelines where we try to capture the most important moment in the development and research of the machines and artificial intelligence. As I told you, the Turing basically established the terminology and main ideas about evolutionary computations. And Baricelli was the first man who he was working on a Princeton. That was the first man who did real numerical experiments with evolutionary algorithms. However, that time was too early to do it because computers were huge. Only few people had an approach to computers, so his experiments has been forgotten. And in the 70s comes John Holland with genetic algorithms, and that was the right moment to introduce again evolutionary computation as well as COSA in genetic programming. So during the time appears more and more sophisticated algorithms, and also algorithms which are able to simulate the effect we called intelligence. However, nobody knows what it exactly is, as you will see. And this development continues up to now. So you can see a lot of different algorithms which are developed today. The most famous is particle swarm differential evolution, and any other algorithms, ant colony optimization, and genetic algorithms, of course, and so on and so on. So in our papers and experiments here in this presentation, we are focused on one of the early swarm algorithms, like self-organizing migrating algorithm, developed in 1999, and PSO, and another, as we will see. So the whole history of the evolutionary computation is quite rich, and swarm intelligence. However, there are still some historically important information which I mention only by one slide. Don't worry, no deep history excursion will be there. But all those developments are tightly connected. Software cannot develop without hardware. Hardware needs software, and all this can be described by algorithm. So all these create a complementary trinity which created the history of AI. and machine learning in general. Concerning to artificial intelligence, it can be classified in many ways. This is one of possible classification, like type 1 and type 2, where the type 1 is narrow AI, general AI, strong AI, and type 2 is more focused on theory of mind and those things you already see on the slide. Also, some famous researchers gives us their ideas and definitions, like John McCarthy, who said that the science of engineering and making intelligent machines, especially intelligence programs, is basically AI, and so on and so on. So when you open the internet and search for definition of AI, you find a lot of definitions. However, none of them is the correct, fully correct mean for 100%. And there is just brief history about AI, as you already know. So we are mentioning here again Alan Turing, John McCarthy, and other researchers who contribute it to the AI development, despite the fact that sometimes they not on purpose cause that development has been breakdown, like for example neural networks, based on the proof that they aren't able to solve linear non-linear separable problems. However, later on it was found that yes, so for that time, for example, neural networks has been sleeping for about 15-20 years, and in 1986 they has been recovered as a fully working algorithms for wide class of classification and recognition and so on, as you already know, definitely know. And in that way you can continue. In 1997, Deep Blue beat the Garry Kasparov. New kind of robotics appears, which simulate the intelligent being and swarms, and so on and so on. AI today, based on this development, of course, is very well known in IT technology and community, and become to be used for various tasks in anti-malware technologies like malware detection, intrusion detection. That means somebody is trying to get into my computer. Phishing detection, that means somebody's trying to, by phishing process, take informations from my person, like credit card numbers, passwords, and whatever else. And also AI is able to, comparing to standard classical scanners, is able to investigate by kind of heuristic say processes, investigate whether that there is a persistent threat in the computer. That means the threat which is heavily resisting to its annihilation. If we take better on this picture, but closer look, so these are different classes of AI in cyber domain. So we can discuss, for example, the positive uses of AI. So that means we are using AI as a defense tool, or as a weapon against the enemy who is going to simply attack us. Of course, AI is not God, so that means it has also its drawback and limitations. But only for limitations I can speak 2 hours. So as well as any algorithms on the world, including AI, AI has also its own limitations. So if you are talking about AI, please don't forget that's only and only mathematical algorithm converted into software and running on the hardware. These methods from the AI for cybersecurity, which can be used, are, for example, learning algorithms, because they can learn, for example, behavior of the malware, or any other attributes which can be derived by deep learning methods. So AI simply can study and investigate the malware from the point of view which is normally not possible to capture by human eyes and human thinking in very short time, and can be continuously adapting to the new incoming informations. So also bio-inspired computing methods are playing the important role, as you will see in our examples and demonstrations, and so on and so on. When we take a closer look on AI-based application on cyber defense, then again, malware detection, intrusion detection, we already talked partly about it on the previous screen, spam identification, and so on and so on. Concerning to opposite side of the coin, we should also say that we should expect criminal use of AI, and that means AI powered malware, then AI against AI. We will see. and social engineering attacks. The social engineering attacks, it's a very modern technology which is using against people who are not IT educated, and that social engineering attacks, it's kind of psychological applied psychology, which is used on the people, to simply convince them that they should tell you informations they normally would not tell and would not share. And of course, more possible use of AI. So if we take a closer look on applications of AI in cybersecurity, there are real applications. We are using here some references to literature. This literature is in a full form at the end of this presentation if you would be interested. So if you take a look, so categorization of the malware, it's already done. The malware detection, that means detection on the PC or Android, for example, or can be used in network intrusion detection, and detect anomalies in behavior of the computer or traffic on the network. Can be used in phishing and spam detection. Again, literature 3321. So the AI can be used to identify the phishing methods, some kind of social engineering methods used during the phishing, can be used to identify spam emails based on the special characteristics which are today very cleverly covered by those spam generator who are sending those emails, and many other methods which can be used, like countering with advanced persistent threats, malwares, and many other examples. You can find a lot of literature which is discussing the using of AI uh, against the cybercrime. So we cannot say that it is not in process today. It is in process, but mostly AI is used so that they take already well-known data and are doing analysis and designing algorithms based on AI, which should fight against those new threats. And we have a different approach. We try to predict, we try to have a vision what kind of malware comes, what will be his behavior, to be ready sooner than it's really come. So if you take a look on the possible application of AI in cybersecurity from that point of view, so it's as follows. So the malicious use of AI is very roughly described here, but very roughly. So AI can be used to make a malware much more stronger, so that calls strengthen malware. Then there is the malicious use, the attacks AI models, which can be used to adversarial inputs, poison training data, and model extraction attacks, and can be also used in social engineering, as we suggest a few times. So adversarial input, that means, as you can see in those publications like 19.2, that's kind of manipulating with the inputs for the deep learning models, to make this artificial intelligence, if we can call it so, be confused and work wrongly against future malware. The same is poisoning training data. So if the attacking the malware with AI find is able to allocate the data for training of anti-malware AI, then it can poison those training data, so the model will be working very badly, and so on and so on. The same can be used for the model extraction attacks. So all this is connected with today with AI, using against AI, and we are going to the moment when these two highly advanced algorithms like AI on the good side and AI on the bad sides are fighting against themselves. The best way it is the best visible in the malicious using of AI, which is using to make malware stronger. That means that it's used to prevent malware against anti-reversing. Is able to create a new malware variant, as we show you, where we demonstrate that on the Darwinian evolutionary processes, which has been used to generate a new kind of malware, which we did in our laboratory. It can be used to adapt to the environment and so on. It can be used also for autonomous malware. So that means eliminating CNC, that means command and control, that means basically botnet is not needed anymore, you know. It can select attack target attack according to the changing conditions, you know. And if we take into consideration bio-inspired and swarm intelligence, then it can be also based on the swarm intelligence, can be under evolutionary processes, as we already mentioned in the left box. Mutations are, of course, obvious. So we are getting new wide possible class of malwares with completely new attributes, which will be very dangerous. And how the AI can be cheated, tell you by a few words my colleague Roman Schenkerik now at this moment.
As a conclusion of this part, we can say that AI has a very important role in cybersecurity tasks. You could see examples that AI can be used in detection of attacks, exploits, detection of malware systems, detection of the code in, for example, mobile applications, key generator synthesis. The AI can be used for, let's say, synthesis of security strategies, optimization of portfolio of strategies, how to deal with any kind of the attacks. It can be used as a classifiers. AI can classify the attacks. It can find some features in logs. We can use a classification for applications, for pieces of code, and many other examples. Or in adversarial machine learning, you know, the man versus machine. And to conclude all of this, the AI has a very important role in cybersecurity, but as it is written here, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because all the AI systems that are very complex or can be, even though quite easy to understand, they can be very easily hacked by very simple, for example, mechanical or very simple logical tasks. For example, as you can see on this example on this figure, that you have a stop sign, and the stop sign can be easily read by let's say the new cars, you know, that those cars that drive automatically, autonomous cars. And with just few stickers with white and black color, you can change this stop sign to speed limit of 45, and this car can easily drive through the crossing section of the roads and can, for example, cause very hard and very bad crash accident. So we have to think about that always there are two sides, that the AI can play a very important role in defending of cybersecurity, in the defending of cyber threats, and of course the same AI can be easily attacked. So we will see more in this presentation. This part of the presentation is dedicated to basics, principles, and the backgrounds of swarm intelligence, because the paradigm of swarm intelligence plays a crucial role in our, let's say, original approach to cybersecurity driven by swarm intelligence, and in our pioneering paper. The swarm intelligence. So what is that? Well, we know that many modern methods of global optimization, or let's say modern algorithms, include original techniques and methods inspired by the behavior of animals and swarms. Many animal swarms show a phenomenon called collective intelligence, in which a swarm acts as a whole without having any central control, and this is most important. Animal swarm can then effectively find food or defend themselves against predators, even though they have no decision-making central node. Although individuals are guided solely by information from their immediate surroundings, it is a sophisticated way in which individuals communicate with each other that allows the entire system to function optimally without individuals knowing the whole group's goal. Thus, we can say the swarm algorithms mimics the observed behavior of swarms of various animals, from ant colonies to wolf packs. Well, the swarm intelligence is currently mostly present in biology. You know that we can analyze the insects, animal groups, try to mimic them, try to understand behavior, try to understand cooperative behavior logics and models, and try to understand the solving a task without, let's say, without this central control, and with the idea that no individual can solve this alone, and try to understand the global intelligence driven by local interactions. In computer science, we can say that the swarm intelligence is a very important branch of AI, or we can say computational intelligence. This is very important in bio-inspired algorithms. We know that there is many algorithms for global optimization that are inspired by natural swarms or flock of the bird, fish, and so on. Those are very powerful meta-heuristic optimizers with many applications. Those algorithms are population-based, and as I already said, the most important role is the most important role which is present in this algorithm is given by the communication. It's given by the communication between the members of the swarm and without any controlling unit. Nowadays, the role of the swarm intelligence is increasing in robotics. The swarm robotics is now very emergent field because it deals with the cooperative problem solving. So we have very simple agents, very simple robots, and they can solve the very complicated and complex tasks without knowing the global goal and without basically knowing what is doing every single member of the swarm. They know only the information from the local neighborhood. So there's a big decentralization, there's self-organization present in the system, and we can say that those systems are fully autonomous.
So as Roman said, the bio-inspired algorithms, or better say in our case, in our needs in this presentation, swarm intelligence, is today very well known part of artificial intelligence and IT education and science. However, I would like to notice only on this one slide what is the background of the swarm intelligence. Usually, scientists think that swarm intelligence has been proposed, say, plus minus 10, 15 years ago, and become to be part of the modern computer science. However, true is again, as in the case of Turing, totally different. There was a Polish writer Stanislaw Lem who wrote a wonderful novels which has been converted to the movies by Hollywood, as well as Andrei Tarkovsky, famous Russian movie maker. And he predicted in those novels like Invictible or Solaris, swarm intelligence and non-human thinking systems. So while we think that swarm intelligence is the product of the modern science, so this is completely not true. It has been fully predicted exactly as we know that today and as we are using it today and researching it today by Stanislav Lem. He exactly predicts swarm robotics, collective memory, decentralized control, and many, many much more, which you can, for example, find here on those few links. So if you will search through internet, you will find those informations very easily. So let's go back to the topic and continue to our showcases of the swarm intelligence used in the malware and anti-malware technology.
On this slide, we can see wonderful examples of swarm intelligence. In this video on the right side, we can see the real flock of the birds that are flying over the landscape. And what you can see here that this flock of the bird is maybe solving some task, maybe finding some nice place where to rest, or they are maybe defending themselves against predator because they are trying to create some shape that is maybe imitating some big bird or something like that. On the left video, we can see the simulation of particle swarm optimizer, which was one of the most famous and still is one of the most famous swarm algorithm. This dot is representing the global optimum, and we can see the particles that are trying to they are always attracted by this point, and they are flying around. But what is the most important feature of the swarm algorithm is inertia, which means that, and you could see it from these videos, which means that the particles, they do not have a tendency to stop. They always try to explore some short neighborhood of the solution, and they are still flying around. So it means that if the particle is flying towards the point of attraction, usually it flies some distance over, and then maybe it turns back. And during this journey, maybe this particle or this member of the swarm can find something even more interesting and then can attract the others. This is very important. And let's say this logic or this idea of swarm intelligence later was turned to wonderful idea of Kennedy Stanley, for example, in novelty search algorithms, which is also very famous, and is introducing a very novel concepts, for example, that can be later turned into general artificial intelligence. So now let's move. So to conclude, or just to summarize this basic ideas and basic features of swarm intelligence, we can say that the swarm intelligence algorithms or swarm, any kind of the system that is using the features or from swarm intelligence paradigm is mimicking the cooperation of simple agents, units, or individuals. We can say that every individual has a problem solution, as we know from, let's say, the classical evolutionary computation nomenclature. And this is done without any command and control unit. So the behavior of the agent is mostly autonomous. And we can observe the self-organization and self-emergence in this algorithm. And this, all these features has been inspiration for many powerful algorithms and, let's say, concepts in swarm robotics. And what we can say that, let's say, the search for further inspiration nowadays, the search for further inspirations and for development of new algorithms and new concepts and maybe new theories in swarm intelligence was accelerated mainly by the success of particle swarm optimizer, PSO, and ant colony optimization, ACO, at the turn of the millennium. The ACO, we know that is ant colony optimization, is the algorithm that is mimicking the behavior of the ants in trying to find the shortest path. We will talk about it more in next slide. And PSO, we already saw some examples on the previous slide, is based on the mimicking of the, let's say, the flying flock of the birds in trying to solving some optimization task. So, and now few words about the ant colony optimization. Why this algorithm is mentioned here? Because this algorithm is used in our pioneering paper, and I will just show you briefly this paper later, and let's say the overview of this paper, and we will just talk in more details further in this presentation. But the ant colony optimization has been a big inspiration in our research. This algorithm was introduced in 1992, and later it was explored in many publications and many wonderful studies. And it was introduced by Marco Dorigo in his PhD thesis. And these algorithms can be classified as, let's say, the algorithm for finding the shortest path in graphs. And this algorithm was inspired by the real ant colonies in locating food sources. And the principle is quite easy, just to moving across the landscape and the marking the trails by the pheromone. And then, of course, the more ants are moving through the shortest paths, the more pheromones there, and the longest paths, due to the phenomenon called evaporation, simply are abandoned later, so they are not used anymore. And this is the pioneering paper that I was talking about. This paper called Swarm Virus, Next Generation Virus and Antivirus Paradigm has been published in 2018 in Swarm and Evolution Computation Journal. Well, this paper is trying to answer for the question what kind of malware or the behavior of viruses we can expect in the near future. In this paper, let's say many wonderful ideas and many possible approaches how the virus or the malware can spread over the system. I mean, hypothetically, how it can behave, what we can expect, is described. Well, just to be sure, just to let's say make you a little bit more calm, and well, this paper is not a cookbook for hackers, so it's not a cookbook how to create really very dangerous malware. But this paper is more or less oriented to the researchers that are trying to deal with the cybersecurity threats, and is trying to show the possible examples and possible ways how to detect kind of behavior that can emerge in new AI systems, how to make some visualization of movement of the virus across the or malware across the file system, and how to connect all of this with swarm intelligence and what to expect if the malware is using the swarm intelligence features, and how this malware can attack the system, and again how we can fight against this. More about the ideas that are presented in this paper will be given further in this presentation.
We start about main topic, that means malware powered by evolutionary computation or swarm intelligence. I would like to also notice that we did some experiments on swarm intelligence using in simulation of the attacks to the computer. Whole process has been based on the 5 different algorithms like particle swarm optimization, self-organizing migrating algorithm, differential evolution, gray wolf optimization, and simulated annealing. That means 3 algorithms, PSO, SOMA, and GWO, belong to the class of swarm intelligence. Differential evolution and simulated annealing are mostly classified like classic evolutionary algorithms. These algorithms has been used so that they generate the attacking strategies against the firewall, whose task was to adopt parameters to be more robust against those attacks in the next attacks moment. On the right part of the screen, you have a screenshot which shows the environment and front end for user. You can see up there that there are some algorithms you can select for the experimentation. Then there is some curve which shows how the learning process was running, and we did this for all algorithms in order to simulate attacks which are different from classical machine attacks. So that means those algorithms has been producing the different vector of attacks so that it looks like human-like attacks. We have to say that those algorithms did very well, and firewall adaptation has been running very nicely under those attacks simulated by swarm intelligence. That's a simple flowchart of the used functions in the algorithm. Whole topic is again for lecture itself, so I'm not going to talk about details because we already said that we are focused on swarm intelligence in malware. So that's only a simple example how it can be used also as the anti-malware solution. So there in the flowchart you can see all those algorithms which has been used, and they are represented by some blocks of functions. Based on our experiments, we would like to say that it is possible to use swarm intelligence in many ways in anti-malware technologies. So now we are basically ready to understand how the virus can work with swarm intelligence, because up to now we talk too theoretically, and we show you simple experiments with swarm intelligence powered attacks against the adaptive firewall. So how the malware can use artificial intelligence or swarm intelligence? In that content doesn't matter if you use this or this word. So let's take a look on our first experiments on the Darwinian and Mendel malware evolution experiments. Using artificial intelligence in general in the defense tasks is obvious, as you saw already in the previous slides. Now there's a question much more important. Can the AI or swarm intelligence be used in the malware creation and malware development? The answer is pretty simple. We believe that yes, and we are going to show it on the two showcases. First one is focused on the Mendelian and Darwinian evolution of the malware. Second is the main topic, that's the X-ware we have developed for some experimentation. So let's start with this Mendel evolved malware. In the literature, you can find so-called metamorphic viruses, which are viruses that consist from the so-called blocks, and those blocks can be exchanged in the positions. So that still should follow the fact that it should be fully working. So if, for example, code block number 1 is moved to this position, as I show you by mouse pointer, then also entry point for the program must be noted here. So basically, it's like combinatorial problem. And if we take, for example, on bad boy virus, it has 8 subroutines, so there was 8 factorial, that means 40,000 different generations, different combinations of malware. If you have 10 blocks, then it means 3.5 million of combinations, and so on and so on. If you take a look on the code, it looks like this, for example. So you can exchange a block of code in the ordering in the body of the malware. You can also use some kind of encryption to make it harder to reveal it. However, this is still following some combinatorial mathematics in its construction and mutations of the body of the malware. So also complexity is very high. There is another example of the similar code which has been based on this philosophy. So the question is that up to now the metamorphic viruses are the combinatorial problem. That means we are using combinatorial mathematics to create new generations. Question is whether we can do the same with evolutionary theory if applied on the malware development. So we did a simple experiments with our own malware we developed for laboratory experiments. We used metamorphic philosophy. So we created blocks like this you can see on the screen, blocks which is searching for drives, searching for files, infection, and so on. Each block comparing to the metamorphic viruses contains a few possible functions how to do its tasks. So infections, for example, contain the prepending virus, rewriting virus, parasitical, or fake, which is doing nothing. Also, there's a higher number of the payloads, which you can combine, and so on. So we create kind of metamorphic body of virus. However, this body has been under Darwinian evolution algorithms, so that this evolution then was creating those new viruses. So now is question whether metamorphism or evolution is better. What is better? What is producing higher number of the combinations? It's clear from the definition of tasks that evolution. So let's take a look here. Whole process works so that evolution basically was running in the discrete space of the integer numbers, where those numbers served like indexes, as you can see here, for the boxes and for their functions. So first index number 2 say, okay, we are using from the first box of the metamorphic virus only function 2. That means a writing virus. Second position 1 means that we are looking for the drives by functions, get logical drivers, and so on. So basically, it wasn't so clear metamorphic virus that was mostly permanent structure from 1 to 8 or 7 blocks. and the functions inside has been selected by evolution. But you can join that easily also with its combination, and then you will get metamorphic evolutionary virus. Up to now, it was only evolutionary virus. So on the right side, you can see the flowchart, or let's call that flowchart. How does it work? So first, it has been done module separate access. That means how it should be infected. Then there was activated routine for the search for drivers and so on and so on via searching for files, how to infect, check selection of the infection engines, and then finally the selection of the kind of payload. The payload, it was possible to use few times. So while another blocks has been allowed to be used only once, the payload was allowed to be used more times. So the evolution allows to develop viruses with different combinations of payloads. So while a metamorphic virus with 8 blocks has so many combinations, now there is a question: how many combinations can produce evolution if applied on metamorphic virus, where the n blocks is with m functions? So let's take a look on another slide for the answer. So it's directly here in front of your eyes, comparing to metamorphic virus, which can offer 40,000 possible combinations of the malware body. When we take into consideration the evolutionary algorithms and more functions in each blocks, we can calculate the possible number of combinations by this formula, which for 8 blocks and m equal 5 functions give us about 200,000 possible malware bodies, distinct malware bodies, distinct possible mutations of the body of the malware. If we take a look at what happens when the m is equal 10, is visible on this graph on the right side, where the blue curve represents the original metamorphic virus body, or I mean possible combinations of the malware body. The yellow is if there is 5 functions in each block, and green for 10. So you can see that with the increasing number of the functions in each block, the number of the possible new combinations of the malware body strongly increase, and that is real threat for the future if the malware will be joined with Darwinian theory of evolution. So to demonstrate some part of our experiments, we prepare also some very primitive screenshots of the results. So that screenshots show you the fitness function structure. That means what kind of items has been used in the cost function, like time of the duration of the activity of the malware, how many files it missed during the attempt to infect them, the length of the virus, the SS means self-replicating structure. Also, the method of penalty has been taken into consideration for fitness calculations and infection failure. That means if it was able to infect some files or not. And of course, whole process has been reported to the log files as well on the screen. So down there, here we have a print screen from such a report, which reports that individual number 2 has been used like this. So separate exit layer was first method chosen, and so on and so on. So everything has been fully recorded. The flowchart of whole process is here. So I think that anybody of you can very easily read it. In initialization part, there was generated the generation of the parents and offsprings, and was evaluated for fitness, and then it was under evolution and tried to find the files in computer which has been predefined. So we basically prepare a special file, and our virus has been looking only for those files in order to keep safety of our computer. And simply this evolution has been running inside the computer. For that purpose, we have used self-organizing migrating algorithm, which is one of the Swarm Intelligence algorithms. And then we basically did some very simple statistics to show how much and how often has been selected different routines in those blocks you already saw. So those simple statistics are here. On the left side, you have a graph which is basically captured in the right side in the table, and then you can see how many times which kind of function in which block has been activated and used in evolution. This slide, malware evolution used by entities, means that we calculated here all functions used in all individuals during whole evolution. And this gives us some kind of, well, let's say statistics, because this is not clear statistics. And we can see from those red columns or higher numbers here in the column count, which the method has been preferably chosen by evolution during the running. The same we did for a leader, because somehow algorithm is working on the leader philosophy. That means there is the best individual which attracts all of another individuals towards him. You can find description of this algorithm in the Springer book, as well as in Swarm and Evolutionary Computation Journal, for example, or on our site on Soma algorithm. And this leader, that was basically individual which has the biggest impact and influence on whole population. So we try to visualize the same for the leaders only during the evolution. So because that was only one individual in each migration loop, the numbers in the column count are of course smaller, as you can see here, but because we are investigating only one individual. And it was clear that it was working. And again, you can see which methods has been preferably using, like rewriting, for example, rewriting methods for virus. So that was quite strange, because the parasitical is much more effective. So question is whether we should rebuild the cost function so that the methods which don't destroy host file should be preferred. Comparing to the previous slide we already saw by entities, we can see that rewriting again has been much more often preferred rather than parasitical methods of the infection, which is very strange, because rewriting destroy host file. So that means really that cost function can be improved. So this experiment is based on the diploma thesis of my student, and logically demonstrated that Darwinian theory of evolution and Mendelian theory of heritage can be clearly used on the malware evolution and can create a new kind of malwares. These experiments here were very simple, and it's obvious that they can be expanded. So if we have virus which can evolve, the question is what will be the next step? And that's the last part of this presentation, which is focused on the swarm virus powered by neural network inside its structure. So let's now talk about this topic. So here we are in the last part of today's tutorial, and which is the most important, and I think that it's backbone or the main topic of this tutorial. We are sorry that we were talking so much about AI, malware, and so on, but it's very important to know that otherwise you would not capture idea in this part of presentation. So let's continue. A few years ago, we got idea, as I talked in previous slides, what's going on if we use artificial intelligence and malware, and what can be next generation of the malware. So we proposed so-called swarm virus, or let's better call that for our purposes XWare, which is swarm-based system which can be used as a virus, spyware, or anti-malware. This idea has been firstly published in the journal paper you already see on the screen, and basically later on has been expanded by another experiments and development, so that the swarm is now today communicating via dark web, is carrying in its swarm body neural networks, which is keeping encoding commands what to do and what kind of payload will be, and so on. We will discuss that later in the next slides. So the main idea of the swarm virus is that it's mimicking behavior of the biological swarm systems. Why? It's quite simple, because swarm system is quite robust against destroying, while command and control center in botnet structure, as you can see on the second line, it can be well, let's say easily disabled by destroying of this CNC center. Of course, that's only in the case of the canonical botnet structure. And also we combined the swarm intelligence base with neural networks. So let's call that second generation. So traditional virus is not more traditional virus, but it's a swarm traveling through your computer system. And in order to visualize its behavior, we also propose method how to convert this behavior into complex networks. In the same way as people are communicating on the Facebook or whatever else, or you are studying the authorships relations, so it can be visualized in the matter of the graph or complex network, if you like. So we propose this method, and we are going to show some pictures. So for obvious reasons, we are not going to talk about details because this topic is quite sensitive. So we are going to talk only about main results and main ideas and some visualizations. There is basically no limitations for that kind of malware. It can be used in any kind of cyber threats, crimes, malware, and so on. But we personally expect and prefer that this technology will be used in anti-malware technologies in order to search for example, futures for malware and destroy it for the reasons you will see on the next slides. So why we try to capture a virus behavior pattern and why social complex networks? Basically, as I told in the beginning, it's inspired by Swarm Intelligence, and as you know, Swarm Intelligence is kind of system which communicates, which consists of the many agents, and those agents communicate amongst themselves. So this communication, when captured, we can see easily what kind of behavior was of that virus, and how this virus was moving through the file system or computer network, if we have the chance to monitor at least roughly its behavior or communication. So that's why we propose those complex network visualizations. The main idea of the swarm virus is following. In our first experiments, we have used unt-colony optimization, while today we are using SOMA algorithms and PSO. And the principle is like this. We have the classical virus, which is down there. Then we have ant colony or swarm intelligence algorithms. So we merge them and we get a swarm virus. And the swarm virus merge functionality of both systems. And this swarm virus then is applied on the file system, because that was our first pioneering experiments. Just try how does it work in the file system inside one computer. Today we have swarm worm also, so we can do experiments on computer network. And this traveling through the file systems can be monitored, traveled, and recorded for our laboratory experiments purposes. So then we can study behavior of the swarm of this swarm virus and estimate its weakness and strength, part of its construction. And this is visualized like the complex networks. So we construct this virus, we let it run in system. Of course, predefined files has been chosen to be infected, and payload, of course, was only something like hello on the screen, so there was no destructive payload, and nothing like erase hard disk or whatever else or stealing data. And we did some visualizations and analysis, like for example, we calculated histogram of the network degree. We calculate communities where each node represents one body of the virus and one file visited by this agent member of the swarm. So basically, in graphs you will see in the next slides, if you see hundreds dots, that doesn't mean that there were hundreds members of the one swarm, but it means that those files has been visited by the swarm members. And color and thickness of the nodes of this graph or complex networks represents importance of the file from the cost function point of view. So while you can analyze the virus activities in the frame of like community, for example, graph, which can be important for people who create and remote this software, you can also analyze how successfully it traveled through the system and which files has been the most attractive for the swarm virus based on this cost function. Remind Stuxnet and Iranian Busher uranium devices. So those devices would be marked here like these huge red and blue balls because they were the most important for the virus. The smallest ball, smallest node means the shorter time and less frequently visited file in the file system in this kind of experiments. So basically, we are able to capture and analyze behavior of this swarm virus by this philosophy of the mutual communication inside the swarm, and also based on the visiting of the files that has been infected and then left. This swarm is basically traveling through the computer system in the same manner as a swarm in a space of possible solutions or swarm of the birds in the nature. That means if we have, for example, swarm with 50 agents, and these 50 agents are creating swarm virus, they are traveling through the computer system so that they are jumping like rabbits from file to file. That means if agent number one visit one file, let's call that file X, and then he travels further into next files in order to be focused to the better and better solutions. That means more and more interesting files which they are looking for. Then they left this file and let it in original form. So this virus basically healed the host which is leaving. So this is not classical virus which is focused on the maximum infection and destruction as much as possible. This swarm system is really using host files only like points for jumping through this discrete space of possible solutions in order to look for the best solution, which can be, for example, file with the certain attributes like the biggest size or special kind of attributes of this file, or you can also make some simple analysis of the file if you are a good programmer what is inside, and based on those analyses you can evaluate by fitness this file if it is important for you or not, and so on. Based on our experiments and different visualizations like those, for example, we found that this kind of philosophy is really vital, is working, can be monitored, bring a very important information about behavior of this swarm, which we are now doing analyze, and we try to propose some defense technologies, but everything shows that only a successful defense technology will be the same kind of anti-malware system. That means swarm-based anti-malware system, which is traveling through the network, looking for the members of following them, tracking them, and killing them, all those members of the swarm at once. Because why? Because this cloud of the agents is almost destroyable, as we will see on the next slides. Here we got some videos just for you, how the swarm was traveling through this file system, and that video you see capture basically how the network has been built, where again those nodes with bigger size are the most important for the search for the searching procedure of the swarm virus. Again, some videos you can see here just for better imagination. So again, we can visualize this swarm virus based on the swarm intelligence, so that we visualize its behavior. That means mutual interactions in communication, and then you can estimate which member of the swarm is, for example, a leader in some algorithm or G-best particle in PSO, and then you can attack this leader in order to decrease the activity of this cloud of this swarm. Or we can visualize the behavior of the swarm virus, as you can see on the screen, as traveling through the file systems or computers in the network, where those nodes are files or computers in the network. And it also gives us some information about the behavior of the swarms and its, say, main task, which should be done. So again, we are able to capture these two kinds of behaviors and dynamics in the form of the complex networks, and we are able to make some analysis today. Then we forward our research, of course, again, I repeat, under very strict and heavy strict laboratory conditions. So we have these source codes and everything very well protected and encrypted against stealing and misusing. And we got next step. Okay, we have swarm virus. So this swarm, how much it's robust again destroying, and how much it can be improved again. So today we have a swarm like this. Normal computer attacks works based on the flowchart with on the left side. So there is some target, some conditions, decisions, and running of the attack. And we got idea, okay, let's improve the swarm so that it will carry neural network. Why neural networks? Because neural network is able to learn, adapt itself, and also all information which is already inside the neural network is basically impossible to decode. What does it mean? Because whole information is spread through the network connections, which can vary in time. And even when you repeat the teaching on the neural network on the same training set, you will get a different weight system, weight values. So it's basically impossible to make a reverse engineering to decrypt what basically the virus should to do if the neural network is inside and if the neural network is commanding the swarm or giving the payload activities, for example. So we simply add to our swarm virus neural networks in two ways. First way is on the left side, where each node of the graph you can imagine as a one agent, one member of the swarm. The arrows are demonstration of their communication amongst themselves, and each member carry whole neural networks for controlling of the swarm. However, if you capture such a member, you have whole network in your hands. Second modification we did is as following. It's captured on the right side. We have a swarm system of the swarm virus where each node is one agent. They are communicating somehow amongst themselves. That's only demonstration picture, of course. And selected members, selected agents, pre-selected agents are carriers of the neurons. So subset of agents of the swarm basically create neural network. And those agents know to which another agents they should send their neural output. So basically neural network is spread through the whole cloud, through the whole swarm, and is very virtual. And what does it mean? At first, the cloud or say swarm is very robust against destroying because it's programmed so that if you destroy whole agents and only one survive, this one agent, because everybody, any of those agents has full information about positions of its colleagues. So this one surviving agent is able to reconstruct whole systems again, including the network connections. And second level of robustness is that this neural network has a weight and informations about or everything. That means payload, where to move next, or upload new configuration of the network for different agents. Everything is hidden inside the weights, including you can also hide there some kind of information about address from where should be next upload for update. So in that way, basically, we got a swarm virus which is powered by neural network. In that case, we use neural networks only for simple operations, nothing extraordinary hard. To check whether it works. So we have a system which is working, which is swarm-based virus and carrying neural network, which is doing adaptation learning and is able to command the whole or influence behavior of whole swarm. Those ideas has been published, partly published in this paper, of course, again without any deep details, because we would like to just attract the attention of the anti-malware solutions, because we think that this kind of threats are already on board or should come very soon. On that way, we are in connection with companies like Asset or VirusTotal, with some people who are working there, and also with the National Department of Cybersecurity. So those things are in movement, and we hope that we will produce very soon some important, say, rules how to fight and identify those kind of malwares in your computers. But when you take a look on the development in last years, you will see that everything is going to be like this. AI is used more and more in both sides, in attacks, in defense. So that's why we open this topic and we are solving this topic. So that's at top of this tutorial. Simply, there's a fusion of swarm intelligence, of the soft computing in the form of neural networks, of the computer malware, and creating the new kind of, let's call that X-ware, the malware would be better, I think, marking, because expert is much more better because it can be used really generally even for defense or any kind of operations like espionage and so on. So a bit summarize these experiments. So at the moment now we have swarm system with neural networks, which is robust, as I already explained, robust, unreadable. So you never know what this neural network is carrying, what kind of information, what kind of commands, what kind of payload. You know, even so, those informations are distributed through the network, which is distributed through the swarm. And detectability of this is another open question and issue. We are doing research, and anybody of you is welcome to join us. How to detect the behavior of such swarm in computer network or systems? Because if there is such swarm, it must communicate. Then, if it communicate, the question is how. If via some black box log, or directly, because they should have information where is each of them located. So there's a lot of ways how they can communicate, and the question is how we can identify it as an external observer, as a victim which is attacked. And for those reasons, we have our next experiments, which is partly mentioned here. One of those is focused on, for example, Tor network. So we try to push forward this swarm XWare, so that the communication among agents is running via Tor network. So it's again much more harder than previous version in the point of view of the discovery of this software, revealing of this software in computer, and everything in Tor network, as you know, is encrypted and very well hidden. So now today our swarm system is able to communicate via dark web, in fact. Concerning to code, of course, we are not going to release the code, only just one slide to show you that it really exists. So everything is written in a C# language. We have a full documentation, including flowcharts, and simply it's not based on assembler on Java. It's based on this language. However, we are going to expand this research into another languages which are much more general than C#. But everything is under process. I also prepare very short videos for you, again, to see how does it work. So there are again some demonstration of our software with some subtitles. So for the moment I will be silent and enjoy, I hope, gentle music which I'm putting in the background, and enjoy those videos which should demonstrate how this software is working. So let's start and enjoy these videos. Okay, so showtime is ended. So let's go to conclusion because our time is already gone. The aim of this presentation was to demonstrate the very fruitful intersection amongst two areas, that means malware technology or say anti-malware technology and the artificial intelligence in very general, because we are using mostly swarm intelligence. And the result of our tutorial or result, the main displaying topic is the Xware, which is the malware and anti-malware based on swarm intelligence algorithms, where the main virus or antivirus, if you wish, is created by N agents as a population in particles form differential evolution or SOMA algorithm. Those agents are communicating among themselves. They don't create offsprings. They just travel like real birds in the space or fish in the sea. They travel through the environment called computer or computer network and communicate among themselves. You already saw in the video that we have used for recording of position of the virus XML file. That was the first generation of our experimentation because we were interested to log everything. But today, if we are doing this in a totally different way, there is no file. They share information directly and write those information into their own bodies. So information is carried with the virus in an encrypted form. And also the benefit of this system is also this, that not only robust and, as I talked before, robustness and detectability and so on, but also important is that anti-malware, today's normal standard anti-malware technologies can hardly capture that because this agents are not staying in infected file, they are just traveling and leaving. And after a task is fulfilled, whole swarm can destroy itself. So there stays nothing in the computer after all if it's programmed in this way. So we basically would like to demonstrate that if we destroy classical botnet scheme and apply Swarm Intelligence, we get a totally new generation of the possible malware, which should be warning for anti-malware companies. And we are able to measure some data of its behavior, compare, we are able to visualize some patterns of behavior. So we hope that that will be inspiration for the anti-malware companies so that they will focus their attention in this way. However, we are continuing in this research, and if you are interested, we are open to any discussion. If you are interested, of course, this should be a little bit updated today. Basically, we publish some ideas. The pioneering paper is the red one, where we publish the main idea about it with unclone optimization and in file systems. While during the time we develop another papers and methods and versions of this algorithm, including non-intelligent, that means classic mathematics-based identification of the malware, which is marked by blue color here. And one of our just coming experiment is we are going to use those method of identification of the malware where we have the success about 99%. We are going to try on this XVAR how does it work if we are able to see this malware by standard or even modern identification methods. So at the end, last conclusion, general conclusion for whole presentation, we pass through some basic ideas of the malware. We talk about artificial intelligence and swarm intelligence overview in order to get some compact view on this topic together with malware. Then we talk about Darwinian malware evolution, where we demonstrate how the malware, especially metamorphic malware, can be enriched by Darwinian malware evolution. And then logically we step to this last part of the tutorial, which is the swarm intelligence based malware and anti-malware, as we demonstrated on the swarm intelligence training firewalls and also on the XVAR, which we already talked about just a few minutes ago. So it's no need to repeat all those ideas again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored that we had a chance to talk about this topic on a GECCO conference. We would like to thank the organizer of GECCO for giving us a chance and for possibility to talk about this topic. We also express our thanks for their heavy effort, especially in this very, very bad and heavy situation with COVID virus, which reversed everything upside down. So we are taking that from the better side, because this video tutorial which we created based on this situation can now be seen by anyone, not only by speakers in Cancun. If you are interested in the literature we mentioned in our presentation, then it's at the end of this presentation. Last information for you, dear friends. We are basically going to ask organizers, based on the copyright, whether we can hang this tutorial also to my YouTube channel. And also I put on some suitable link this presentation in PDF or maybe in PPT for your free use and education purposes. So watch occasionally my website ivanzelinka.eu, where the link should appear soon based on the approval from the conference organizers. Once more, thanks again. Have a nice time whenever you are. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay in touch if possible. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Goodbye.